We'll start with just a quick statement from Dave Heeke.
Thanks, Matt. Everybody hear me okay? We good? All right, great. Hey, thanks for being here today. Obviously, we're very pleased with the decision of yesterday to move forward with a number of our sports, and including football in the near future. I couldn't be more excited for our student athletes and our coaches so that they can continue to pursue their passion, along with their education here. They're, competing in their sport. So the opportunity to compete is very exciting for us, and we're looking forward to it. There'll be some challenges. It'll be a little bit different, but we're, again, very excited and optimistic about the future for that. So we thank the CEOs, the athletic directors, our coaches groups, our student athletes who have all had input in this and, collaborated together to get us to this point. And a special credit to our Pac-12 Medical Advisory Group, who's done outstanding work to continue to put us in a position where we can get back to this point. And I guess finally I'd say tremendous respect and thanks to our staff internally who have been wading through this for several months, keeping things moving forward. Our medical group, our academic team, our administrative team, the coaches, it's been a very challenging road, but we're really pleased to be to this point. It's a very positive movement, and we're excited about going forward. So with that, I think we're open for questions.
All right, we'll start with questions for Coach Sumlin or for Dave. Michael Lev, first hand up.
Okay, then. Let's start with Coach Sumlin. How and when was the news delivered to the team, and how would you describe the reaction of the players?
Well, it was delivered at the same time that everybody was looking at Twitter, right? Social media. For us to wade through all the information without just going off and just saying, hey, we're doing this. We have a team meeting Sunday to talk about what the plan is going forward for practice, what that looks like. We have a parents meeting Sunday afternoon as well. So I felt like that would give us time to gather the information that we needed, because there were still some questions even this morning about the next couple weeks of ramp up. Is that 20 hours? Is it 12 hours? What is that? So there were still some things that had to be hashed out from a logistics standpoint. So we're still working through that with what that looks like, and then what our preseason, well, it's not camp because we're in school, but we've already worked on a 6-week model. We had done that, and so a lot of this information, a lot of the questions that parents and players had, we're still gathering that information, Mike. That makes sense? Because there's some moving parts that are going on today. And then as we have continued to develop our schedule for the next 6 weeks of what practice looks like and what our weeks look like, I felt like on Sunday, we'd be able to answer those questions in detail a little bit more for parents and players.
A quick follow-up, if I may. Besides the obvious of having 8 more hours available to you in a given week, what are some of the things you can do with the 20-hour week that you haven't been able to do with the 12-hour week?
Well, it depends on where you are, right? And in your startup, because you keep hearing the term ramp up, right? And with that, depending on your philosophy, we have been on the field for a couple, 3-4 weeks up until last week. So for us, as we declare, we're going to do what's best for us. We're getting a lot of work with those three really OTA style practices that we have going on a week, probably 4 this week, going into 5 the next week, and then really into a preseason camp in week 3. So the 20-hour rule really doesn't affect us as much until we get to preseason real practice, when we have helmets and shoulder pads on, and how we attack that. So that's another reason we're meeting with families and everybody on Sunday because as we've had a week off. We want to maximize our 6 weeks, but we also want to make sure that what we're doing is a ramp up, and that 6 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now, just because guys are excited right now, we want them to still be excited at that point and be healthy enough to play, and try to mitigate some of the soft tissue things that you've seen across the country at different times. So our medical team is doing a great job. Our strength and conditioning people have done a great job. And so for us, the ramp up next week becomes as important as what's going to happen 5 weeks from now or 6 weeks from now, the week of game week.
All right, next question will be from Justin Spears.
Hi, this question is for Dave. Dave, I'm wondering, the 11 false positive cases from a few weeks ago, was that with the Quidel testing?
Good question, Justin. I think I'd have to get you some more information to know exactly what that was. Without Dr. Paul on here to answer that, I'm not in a position to answer that.
But do you think maybe over the last few weeks, do you think you've been able to kind of work out some kinks and maybe it's been a little bit more efficient with testing?
Yeah, again, I'll go back to what I've said before. We really have a gold star program here at Arizona. Our testing has been one of the best in the country. The process by which we do that, the safety of our student athletes, some of the, again, not knowing exactly the specific details of the false positives, there was some disruption in the process that then indicated some positives that, again, were identified as false positives. Our process worked. We had tracing. We looked through the tracing of that. We contacted. And it pointed back to, well, there must be something that occurred here. Retested everyone, and we figured out where that was. So again, I think our system has been very, very positive going through it all the way. Certainly, anytime, the longer we're in this, the more we learn, the better we are, the more efficient we are. It's kind of why we are here today with the things we learn each day, week, month regarding testing, the availability of more, the more chance to get those tests back to us quicker is all positive. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Next question from David Kelly.
Yeah, this question is for Dave Heeke. And Dave, obviously this was a decision that came from above with the president's the decision to play, but how much do you believe there was a fear that there's going to be a second wave of COVID-19 in the winter, and that if we don't play now, we might not be able to play come January?
Again, not being in the room with the presidents, I'm certainly not going to speak for them. That was not something that we were actively considering. With the abundance of testing, again, we'll go back to our three factors, the amount of testing, the prevalence of the virus, and some of the extended concerns we had about cardiac, other issues that might result from the virus. Those were the three central focal points. The ability to test more regularly on a daily basis helps us identify those who may have the virus, certainly minimize the spread, control those, and treat those who may have the virus, really effectively and efficiently. When we had the opportunity to play, when we were able to meet and again come to the position that we're in now through our medical advisory group, when they felt it was safe to move forward, we move forward.
Next question will be from Michael G.
Is that me?
Yes.
Thank you. This question's for Kevin. What are your thoughts on just the potential of an expanded college football playoff format?
You mean in a normal year or just in general?
Like
right?
the whole idea of the concept of having like an expanded, going past like four teams making yeah.
I think it's inevitable. I mean, it's going to happen, right? So but in a time like right now, this is really a one-off situation, right, for everybody in the country. So to get to a point where we're talking about CFP, which we weren't talking about maybe a month ago, is a big step this year. I think over the course of time, I think there's too much of an appetite, and in time the CFP will expand. I think there's too much of an appetite for it. I think there's some, there's quality teams that get left out every year, but I think what's happened in the last real month and a half in college football, it's kind of funny to me now. Now we're playing. Now we got a college football playoff situation, and now we're talking about expansion. So a month ago we were talking about even playing. So let's take it one step at a time. I think over the course of time, I don't think there's any doubt that the CFP is going to expand.
Thank you.
Jason Shear, Wildcats Authority.
This is for Coach Sumlin. I know you don't have much of a choice in this, but new defensive coaching staff, unique element and all that. Is the 6 weeks, how do you kind of approach that with, you guys have even more challenges than maybe some other teams?
Yeah, we do, but we don't. We had 4 practices in the spring. People forgot about that. Some people didn't have any. Okay, so, we've been on the field for the last couple 3-4 weeks with our players. So yeah, there's challenges, but there's challenges for other programs in this league who did not have spring football at all. So we're not alone. I just put it that way. And I think the key is how we've handled the last couple months. Our university has been great. Our administration has been great. Our return to campus and getting guys in shape and the way we've done things, as Dave said, it's really been a gold standard for football, particularly in our league, but across the country. And so we're fortunate in that regard because of our how we've handled Zoom meetings, schematically, how we've been on the field with our guys to teach technique. So yeah, it's like anything else. You can look and say, well, that's our situation. But guess what? There's a lot of other programs in this league that have new head coaches, have new staffs, have not even been on the field with their players. So, it's all in how you look at it. And you guys know I'm a glass half full guy. So, that's where we are. And yeah, there's some challenges for our defensive coaches. But with that comes, you got training camp. We got 4 weeks. We would have given our players off really in the summer in a normal year, a discretionary week before we went to training camp. And then the summertime, we probably wouldn't have had as much time on the field with our players. So it depends on how you look at it. It's not traditional. And I think the thing that I keep talking about in this building with our players and with our coaches is, you've heard me say it a bunch, the new normal. Whatever you've done in the past, how we've put together books, how we've done things from a practice standpoint, we got to be flexible. And the team who handles that the best, and does and is aggressive in their attitude towards their health and safety standards, with masks, with social distancing, how we're going to do that with meetings and everything else, that becomes important. So yeah, there's some challenges for us defensively, but there's some challenges for other people in this league as well.
Jay Gonzalez, next question.
Kevin, you were kind of headed in that direction a second ago, but I kind of wanted you to finish it. Why is 6 weeks a magic number for teams to get ready versus, say, 5, which would have given you guys another week to get another game in or something like that? Why is 6 weeks a magic number, and what's the difference between, say, 1 less week?
This has been talked about since probably May. Right. So March, April, May, we've been talking about different models. And as Dave alluded to, you know, our medical advisory board is also working with coaches. This is not just, this is across the board, from presidents, from different discussions with our athletics directors, coaches, strength and conditioning. You know, what does that look like? What's the optimum point from professionals to get guys ready to play in a quality manner, but a safe manner? And so that was a collaboration of a lot of different people that came to this model based on science and based on it wasn't just something they snatched out of the air. So yeah, I know that sounds a little bit different, but you know, the 6-week model has been floated around for basically the last 4 months. So, you know, that's everybody's has come to that, and I think everybody feels good about it.
And Jay, I might just follow up on that. You know, as Kevin said, lots of people working on this. You know, we've had a football working group for a few months now, continually looking at how we would re-enter and reactivate football. So lots of input about what's appropriate. From football coaches and administrators that are in the game. Number 2, our medical advisory committee, what they're recommending from a medical and a science, our strength and conditioning coaches and professionals, what they see, what they feel is appropriate for our student athletes to be, you know, to be ready, to be safe and to be healthy, to go into, you know, a very physical sport here we're talking about. And then finally, the multiple, levels of readiness amongst our league. I think we talked about this almost ad nauseum, but we have so many different levels. Who's, you know, in this community versus, you know, in Tucson versus California versus Colorado versus, you know, the Northwest. Where is everyone? So what is a reasonable time? Some of us have been fortunate to be on the field a little bit longer or had more contact with our student athletes. Some haven't. So we've got to be respectful of those and those young people, those student athletes. Are they ready to go? What is that period of time we think we can make sure we put them in the best position to be safe and to be ready and prepared to go into a very physical game?
All right, next up in the queue for questions will be Brian, and then Jason Barr and Michael Lev in that order. So Brian, you're next.
This has been for Coach Sumlin. What's been the participation rate like in the OTAs? And did you have any players that stayed home and were not around campus and were just doing everything online that you need to bring back?
Yeah, we had some players that not necessarily stayed home, but kind of a wait and see phase, right? So I think that's everybody's had those, and across the country. So yeah, we've had those conversations. We're still having those conversations. I think now that some guys know it's real, you know, those final decisions are going to be made. You know, we know that, they know that, and that's why Sunday we're having our meetings with families and with parents to give them as much information as we can, as we can gather in the next 48 hours about what our protocols are going to be, what the expectations are, and where some of the guys who maybe have some concerns and parents who have some concerns, we can answer those questions and get back to work next week.
And just a quick follow-up, what exactly are you able to do during those OTA workouts?
Well, right now, well, in the past, you could wear a helmet,
Okay.
number one, which was a big deal.
Mhm.
We've had spider pads. I think the big movement from across the board that really helped were we were able to utilize sleds and dummies, which we were not able to utilize back in the 8-hour period, and football. So you know, basically you're able to run an offense with all 11 out there throwing and catching. All your big guys are able to punch sleds and bags and do all the things that they need to do to get their technique together. and then we're able to line up and identify formations defensively, motions, things like that. Everything right up until you put shoulder pads on, basically.
Gotcha.
My question is for Mr. Heeke. Is no fans definite for all the home games? Is it a possibility that you could experiment later on in the season with a small percentage of fans? And what is your message to the fans, if you can, or even if you can't have them at football this year?
Well, thanks, Jason. Yeah, as we move into this new phase with football, this period, we won't have the opportunity to have fans inside of Arizona Stadium for the entire season. So we're while we're disappointed on that, we're pleased that we're playing football. We appreciate the passion of our fans, and they've stayed with us. And we hope to have a lot of ways to engage, to watch the games, to do different things that they can't, to follow the Wildcats. But at this point, per the Pac-12 decision to come back, along with that, across the board in all of our markets, there'll be no fans.
I mean, okay, I understand. The only follow-up, is there any date where you would revisit that, or is just you're just taking it week by week here?
Yeah, we'll have a look-in date, before January 1st, but it would likely not impact football.
Thank you.
Michael Lev, back to you.
Okay, piggybacking on what Jason was just asking about, I know you were not in the room, Dave, when all the decisions were made among the CEO group, but to the best of your knowledge, what was the basis of the league's decision to not have fans?
Well, there was certainly those who were interested in having fans. We all have been working on models, like all sport organizations around the country, really around the world, about how to safely engage fans into our games. So we would, optimally, we would like to do that. We, again, as a conference, got down to a point where we feel that a common approach, unity in the approach, is best at this time. There are uncertainties, and I think back to that overused term, with a real abundance of caution, so that we, again, across our entire footprint of Pac-12 institutions, we felt it was appropriate not to have fans. Again, I would have liked to have fans. I was an advocate for fans, but I certainly respect the decision and understand where we're going.
What are the options for season ticket holders now that for a fact that no one will be able to attend games for this 2020 season?
Yeah, our communication with our season ticket holders remains the same, that they have the opportunity to, one, donate those tickets and the dollars associated with that to the program, to help the program going forward. Two, to potentially move that forward to be a credit for future ticket purchases. And then ultimately, if they'd like, we would honor a full refund. We've had great support. The majority of our fans have said, we want to stand by the program. We want to help you through this very difficult time. Football is a significant revenue producer for us. And I've been very pleased and very appreciative of what many of our fans have decided to do, and that's to support the overall program by continuing to stay on board and donating their funds forward to the overall athletic program.
One final one really quick. Will tailgating be allowed on campus, even if fans are not allowed in the stadium?
Yeah, we won't have the opportunity for tailgating this year on campus.
Thank you.
Moving on to the list here, Justin Spears, next question.
Coach, this one's for Coach Sumlin. Now that you're preparing for a season, what's your overall assessment of the roster and the guys that you have, and what challenges and what holes do you think there are on the team?
I think they're the obvious ones that we talked about last time, right? We've had some transfers, but we got some young guys that have come in here. Obviously, we have a new defensive staff and some guys to work with. So it's brought up before, just about, defensively where we're going to be. But we've got some good young players who've come in here, some veteran guys that I think have had some, have done some great work. Anthony Pandy's doing a great job, and can move inside or outside. So, we've got to find the depth and the flexibility with maybe some younger players, particularly up front on defense. Some of the issues that we had with our offensive line last year have been solved because they were first-year players, first-year starters. Now they've got some depth. So, that's where we're going to be. We've got to look at where we are defensively up front, get that solidified, what that two deep looks like, and on the perimeter offensively, what our receiving core looks like. Because at running back, we've got a lot of talented guys, and I think our offensive line, although still young, is experienced because of last year.
Next, we'll go to Megan McNeil.
Thanks. Just two kind of quick questions. What precautions specifically are y'all taking to prevent the spread of COVID within players? And also, are y'all concerned about a potential COVID spread and spike as fans kind of go to bars or, have viewing parties on their own? Are y'all going to encourage any kind of social distancing within fans, or how are you going to kind of handle that?
Well, I'll take it off the top, and Coach, if you want to comment, you certainly can. Let's start with the fan side. We certainly want our fans to follow the Wildcats, but we want to do it in a safe way. We want to encourage them to do that in a safe manner, following all of the protocols that have been outlined for us regarding the safe nature of interacting with each other. Wearing a face covering, the proper physical distancing, the ability to keep yourself clean and sanitized, washing your hands, those things. I think we can do that, and we'll encourage that very much for our fans to be safe, but still support the Wildcats. We've had a long-standing, as the first part of the question, a long-standing protocols in place for the safety, the health, and well-being of our student athletes. We have a very clearly outlined system that happens here on campus. Our student athletes, the environment that they come into in our facilities, around our programs. Again, while we're following all of those recommendations from our health officials, the CDC, our university, we're testing, on a very high basis, and now it will be even higher. So we will have our student athletes in a very safe environment, and that if they are exposed to the virus, we have the steps in place to quarantine individuals, again, to trace and track what's going on so that we can control and give great care for them. So feel good about that across our entire campus. We've seen no significant spikes within the athletics program with regard to the virus. It is challenging in a college environment, and our student athletes have a responsibility. They've got to take that responsibility going forward to make sure that they're very careful about the choices they make. And this generally comes from, the outside and some of the contact that can occur outside of certainly our athletics program. So, Coach, you all know you have many rules and protocols yourselves, and how your players will attend to those.
Yeah, I think it's well publicized. We had some challenges early the summer. We had protocols in line, how we enter and exit the building. What the protocols are for wearing a mask, face coverings, etc. So we cover those daily, weekly. A little bit more of an advantage since we've been here for a little bit longer. So our guys are getting used to it. It's hard for everybody to be used to it at the same time, but it's something you got to stay on. And but yeah, it's our protocols, even of entering and exiting the building, gathering food, and as Dave said, alluded to earlier, I think the big confidence boost for players and families, and probably for our presidents as well, without speaking for them, was the daily testing. And I mean, that's as good as you can get. And so that our players feel safe around in their environment, and quite frankly, so do our coaches.
I just have a quick follow-up, if that's okay. So y'all are doing the daily antigen testing, right? And then the Pac-12 is suggesting a weekly PCR test as well. Will y'all be doing that too?
That's correct. We will follow that protocol. Mm-hmm.
Next question will be from Troy, allsportstucson.com.
Hi, Coach. This one's for you. With the scheduling not decided yet, what are you hoping for to see in your guys' football schedule? What do you expect to see maybe from North team? Just give us your thoughts on that, please.
Well, I just, there's only so many people you can play, right? So, that's helped us from a preparation standpoint. Like Dave said, we don't know, when we'll get a schedule. Hopefully maybe this weekend, maybe not till Monday or so, or early next week. But that's one of the reasons we've held off on meetings with families and with players, and get started on Monday. So, for us, as I said, in a one-off year with things like this, you can't be concerned about that. You can't. All right, here's what I'd like to see. What we'd like to see, that ship has sailed. Right, so we've got a schedule. There's only so many people on there that you can play. You know who you're going to play in your division. You get a crossover, so we'll figure that out. And it doesn't really matter, because the schedule's a schedule. Whatever that looks like is what it looks like. I've talked to coaches in different leagues that are playing this weekend. They didn't have any say over their schedule either. So. What I want doesn't really matter. What comes out here in the next 3-4 days is what the way it is, and that's what we're going to have to adjust to and be ready to go.
Next question will be from Jay Gonzalez, and then David Kelly after that.
Dave, we heard the president of University of Oregon say that money was not a factor in the decision, and I get what he's trying to say, that you guys made the decision based on the science and all that other stuff, but certainly, the whole financial aspect of all of this had to play some sort of a factor in even just considering to go forward. And what were the considerations there when you're talking in the U of A's case, $60 to $65 million? And do you have any sense of what the season as it now will be? How much of that it will allow you to recoup?
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Let me try to unravel that just a little bit, and then if I miss something, please tell me. Again, first and foremost, we want an opportunity for our student athletes to play, and we had to clear the hurdle of their health and safety and their well-being, and that was number one priority. And if we could get to that, terrific. We can activate competitive seasons. Obviously, a byproduct of doing that and playing is the opportunity to generate some level of revenue. Those revenues are important to all of our programs, but it was not the number one factor. It really wasn't talked about significantly. It is a byproduct of playing the seasons, the opportunity for our media partners to be engaged, and then thus, the flow of some revenues back to the institutions and certainly back to the conference. So, it is. Without fans, there's a tremendous challenge. We're glad to be playing, glad to have the opportunity, but we are still significantly short on revenues, and that's going to be a challenge for us going forward as an organization on how we manage that significant revenue shortfall during the next year. And this will be a multi-year dilemma for all of our institutions as we roll out of this. But we're pleased that our young people, that's our mission, that's our priority, that they can compete, that they can pursue their education here, and we can do that healthy and safely and in the right manner. And again, as I say, some of the byproducts around that, okay, that's helpful as well. because we reinvest those resources into these young people's experience here on campus.
Just a quick follow-up. And do you have when will you have a sense of, how much revenue this is going to mean for you, and how much of a shortfall you're going to have of that $60 to $65 million number that you gave to us previously?
Yeah, and as we've understand the outline of going forward now, we're looking at our overall budget and making some decisions on that. So, that's a work in progress right now. I will just say it's still very significant. While the revenues are important, as I said, it's still a very significant shortfall.
David Kelly.
This question for Coach Sumlin. Coach, just what's the status of Edgar Barola going into this restart? And two, how hard were the conversations with the defensive guys that left, Colin Schooler and Tony Fields? And do you ever get into a situation like that where you try to talk a guy out of leaving and staying, and kind of what are those interactions like?
You're on mute, Coach.
Firstly, I think Edgar's situation has not changed. So that's an ongoing discussion. With the defensive guys, I think David, every situation is different. Okay, so some guys have made up their mind. I think the Schooler situation was different just because they were brothers, and they were intent on going somewhere to play this fall. They didn't have the information that they have today, which is unfortunate. But they made it clear to me that they wanted to play this fall and then have an opportunity to play at the next level next year. So their decision was basically based on the fact that the information they had at that time was that opportunity was not going to be available to them here in our league. So as I said, we had a conversation about it. I had conversations with Tony several times. So yeah, I mean, we've had, there's a lot of work by both sides to split up. So each situation's different, but yeah, those conversations were had.
And our final football question will be from Jason Shear. That'll be our final football question. Anybody with questions for Dave, non-football related after Jason's question can stay on. But last football question, Jason Shear.
Hey, Dave, the conferences that started earlier have a little more flexibility. There's been some games canceled because of the Pac-12 start. There isn't as much flexibility. I guess, what's the contingency plan for the Pac-12 should the worst case scenario happen?
A good question, Jason. We hope there isn't a major disruption. We think with the abundance of testing and the way we've put our testing program together that we can minimize significant disruptions, play the full 7-game season, and be ready to move forward into the postseason. The flex, it's hard to tell, how many games any school is going to play. You've seen the postponements or the cancellations that have occurred, and we'll just do our best to move forward. But I think this abundance of testing will really help us minimize those significant disruptions. It's clear there's not a lot of flexibility, and but with the uniqueness of the Pac-12, the ability to all come together to start on a common date, felt that was the right thing to do, and to move forward. We believe we can get that done, and we're really, again, very hopeful that we'll play the whole 7 games.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Coach Sumlin, for your time. I'll do it for the football press conference. If anybody would like to ask a couple of follow-up questions to Dave about sports other than football, you're more welcome to stay on for a couple more minutes.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, I'm open for other questions.
Yeah, Bruce Pasco, first up, raised his hand several times for non-football related questions, so I'll let Bruce go first.
Dave, actually, well, my first one's actually kind of football related, following up on what Jay was asking you. I know it's total guesswork at this point, but you've been pretty good about giving ballparks, and I'm wondering, again, of that 60-65, where do you come out now? And specifically within that, I'm wondering, do you get all the media rights money with a 7-game season, or has there been any talk about, does that I think it's normally what, 22 to 24, something like that. I mean, can you get 100% of that, or have you gotten any feedback from the networks on that negotiation?
Well, the networks have been very receptive to our plan and the ability to deliver them a number of football games close to the contracted amount. So we feel that our media package will be, if not fully met, very close to that, and the revenues that'll be distributed to the conference and to the institutions. Let me see the first part.
Do you have a ballpark idea just overall? Okay, you were talking about 60, 65 without, and I believe you said if we play in the spring, it's going to be probably not offsetting it that much. I don't, now that you're going to sort of a late fall deal, how much of it gets offset? I mean, are we looking at 50 million or still losing?
Let me put it this way. The forecasts that we developed were centered around football in the spring, the late winter spring, that would include fans. So there was a revenue component from fans of between 25 and 35%. So while we've activated football and we're playing in the fall here, we don't have that fan component. So we lose that portion of the revenue stream. So, I don't want to ballpark, Bruce, because the numbers continue to float so much. I appreciate you thinking I can ballpark pretty good, but this one, we're going back. We're kind of almost scraping it all the way down, going back, and we're going to have to rebuild. To be quite really honest with you, I think I owe that to our group, to the university, but we're challenged. Again, very positive that we're playing games. It's tricky without fans. So,
right. You did mention though that some of the fans are donating, and these are old figures I have, but for example, you had 7 million booked for ticket revenue, 4 million for sponsorship and royalties. How much of that can you maybe keep in this situation? I mean, of the 7 million for tickets, do you have half? Do you have 3.5 maybe comes back to you? That people are still giving money back, or still letting you keep it, or
yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know the exact amount. I'm gonna hesitate to even guess. So I want to give you a better number when I have that, Bruce. We again are evaluating our media, our local sponsorship and marketing rights. How many of those, what the values of those will be with our partners, and those are the things that we've got to go back to now and really rebuild from the beginning about our revenue streams. So again, not trying to dodge it at all, Bruce. I think it's a really important question that I've got to be very specific on before I start throwing out numbers.
Well, and if I could ask one more follow-up along those lines, where do you stand as far as how this impacts you? You mentioned a multi-year situation now, as far as either taking out loans or possibly more furloughs or possibly even layoffs, or where does that stand within the department, not university-wide, just how it might affect ICA?
Yeah, well, again, as we go back, we're looking at what other mitigation strategies we would have to go forward with, because I believe we will have to do additional reductions inside the athletic operation. We're reliant upon our own revenues, not those that come from the university. So we're operating independently in that way. So we'll have to really look at that, and that's why this is really important exercise now going forward. It's very critical from that perspective.
And is that loan possibility, that program, that's still, I mean, you guys going to take that at some form, or do you know where that stands?
Do not know, and I'm not ready to, talk about any final things. We are actively pursuing, that bridge funding, those loan funding through the Pac-12, but we're not in a position where it has, that we're moving forward. We're looking at those options and evaluating them very, very closely.
Thanks.
And we got time for one more question. Justin, since you got your hand up, you'll get the last question here.
But since fans aren't allowed until 2021 for basketball, are you going to do like a re-entry plan for fans? Are you going to do limited seating in January? How are you guys going to reintroduce fans once the new year hits?
Well, let me be clear for everybody. January 1 is not a date that has been selected that we are guaranteed to have fans. We've made a commitment across the league to prior to the January 1 date, we would reevaluate where we stand as a conference regarding fans. So there's no guarantees that there'll be fans in 2021. We'll evaluate that. I'm very hopeful. I want to be optimistic. I hope we can get there. Like we've been doing, Justin, from the beginning, is we have plans at different percentages of how we would activate fans, how we would bring them into the buildings, what those capacities could be, and then a step approach of, okay, how do we allocate that access to different people, our season ticket holders, our donors, et cetera, so that, people can come into and see the games to some level.
Do the last 8 weeks or 7 weeks, does it give you optimism how quickly, things are evolving and maybe things could get back to normal? I know you said January 1st isn't like a hard date, but for how quickly things have evolved, are you more optimistic about reintroducing fans once, January comes?
I'm optimistic because I believe here at Arizona, we have an excellent strategy to do that in a real safe manner. Now, want to be careful. There's a lot on the line, and we have to respect our local communities and what's happening. But I think we can do that. So I'm optimistic, and I want to find ways where we can have our fans engaged in the games because they play such a vital role. We want them to be part of this, and we want them to watch the games and support our teams locally. We also know how important it is to the local economy and what's going on. But we have to do that the right way, and we have to be, work in concert and in partnership with our local health officials, the university, to make sure it works.
And real quickly, Bruce, I know we're almost out of time, but you had one basketball question, Bruce. I'm going to get you squeezed in here quickly.
Yeah. Am I on here? Yeah. Yeah. Dave, I'm sorry about this, but I was wondering, and I'm assuming I was curious about the non-conference game contracts for both sports, and I understand with football, those 2 games that you were going to be paying, those leagues aren't playing anyway. So I'm guessing those are maybe not something you have to pay. I was curious about that, but also, and then the basketball contracts, I'm wondering about the ones that were on hand for before November 25th and the ones that are on hand for after. In other words, are the ones before November 25th, are they going to be thrown out where you don't have to pay that guarantee because the NCAA said no games before November 24th, and the games that are scheduled after in December, et cetera, Montana, whatever, are those games that you're obligated to keep or pay?
Well, let me start with this. We've obviously been in contact with all of those opponents, both football and basketballs, our non-conference opponents. Everyone understands the unique circumstances that exist. So we're working and collaborating with those folks. We want to make sure we can somehow play at some point, whether it's this year or in the future. So that goes without saying. We need to first understand and finalize our conference men's and women's basketball scheduling model. And that is very close to being completed. Once we have that, then we'll determine and fully understand what we can do. We also need to understand where the MTEs are and how they fit into the mix here. So with that, but again, we want to play as many of those teams as we can that we have on our schedule in the non-conference, and we'll again, we're talking to them actively with what that means, if that makes sense, Bruce.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you feel like you have to, or if some of them are kind of a hard line. If some of these schools are saying, hey, we need the money, especially, say Montana, for example, they say, hey, we need the 90. Can we still keep this game? Or do you have to reschedule it, or do if that doesn't fit in? And as part of that,
show me the money. Is that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, legally, because I think in those contracts, it literally has force majeure, right? Where it says act of God, nobody's liable. But this is not an act of God. Like technically, you could still play these games. So that's why I was wondering if it's an obligation as well.
Well, I won't play lawyer. I do know that we have, again, good relationships with the folks that we schedule with and the athletic directors. We all know this is a very unique year, and we're trying to work together to make it work right for everyone. And that will always be the philosophy at the University of Arizona, to do the right thing and do the very best we can. But there's some unique circumstances this year, and hopefully we can work that out. We're all challenged with resources, and hopefully for the good of us all, we can move forward and do things that benefit both sides.
Thank you very much, Dave. over on time. So thank you again for your time this morning. Thanks to everybody for attending our press conference today.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Hey, it's a step forward, right? We're getting closer to doing some things. So have a good day, everyone. Bear down.
Thanks. Have a good day.